The chamber floated in perfect silence, suspended above a dying neutron star whose pale light bled through the transparent walls like a warning no one wished to hear. Every seat in the circular hall was occupied. Beings of impossible forms, crystalline minds, liquid intelligences, towering bioengineered intellects, sat in calculated stillness. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, not through conquest, but through control. Order was their doctrine. Predictability, their weapon. And today, that order was being questioned. At the center of the chamber, a projection shimmered into existence. A blue world rotated slowly, cloud-streaked and deceptively serene. Earth. A murmur rippled through the council, not spoken, but transmitted, a chorus of silent unease. High Arbiter Zyro rose. Its form bent the light around it, a tall, radiant silhouette with no fixed edges. Its voice entered every mind simultaneously, precise and unyielding. Designation: humanity. Species origin: soul system. Development curve: anomalous. The projection shifted. Wars. Explosions. Cities rising, falling, rebuilding. Machines evolving. Weapons growing more efficient. Then, suddenly, stars. They achieved faster than light travel in a fraction of the standard developmental timeline. Zyro continued. Not through harmony. Not through consensus. Through competition. Through conflict. Another image replaced the last. Human ships, crude compared to council vessels, yet numerous. Expanding. Testing boundaries. They adapt at a rate that defies predictive modeling. A figure composed of geometric light leaned forward from its seat. Adaptation is not unique, Arbiter. It is the foundation of all advanced species. Correction. Zyro replied without hesitation. Controlled adaptation is. Humanity does not control its evolution. It accelerates it under pressure. The chamber dimmed slightly as the star outside pulsed. Zyro raised a limb, and the projection fractured into multiple data streams, simulations, probabilities, branching futures. In 87.4% of modeled scenarios, humanity destabilizes surrounding systems within 3 centuries of integration. A pause. In 62% of those, conflict spreads beyond containment. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. They are young. Another voice interjected, softer, layered with harmonic tones. Youth often appears volatile. It stabilizes with guidance. Zyro turned toward the speaker. Humanity has been observed engaging in self-conflict continuously throughout its history. Even in periods of peace, it prepares for war. The projection shifted again, this time showing human soldiers training, engineers testing weapons, simulations running endlessly. They do not forget conflict, Zyro said. They refine it. A ripple of discomfort moved through the council. They have also demonstrated cooperation. The harmonic voice pressed. Global alliances. Unified responses to existential threats. Temporary, Zyro replied. Reactive. Not foundational. The Arbiter stepped closer to the center, its presence intensifying. A species forged in conflict does not abandon it. It carries it forward. The neutron star flared, casting sharp shadows across the chamber. And now, Zyro continued, they stand at the threshold of interstellar integration. The projection zoomed outward, human colonies scattered but growing. Trade routes forming. Signals reaching beyond their borders. They request entry into this council. The words lingered. A crystalline entity rotated slowly. And your recommendation? For the first time, Zyro paused. Not from uncertainty, but from precision. Denial is insufficient. A faint shift in the chamber's energy. Containment is improbable. The data streams flickered, collapsing into a single projection, a branching path that ended in a single outcome: conflict. Elimination, Zyro concluded, is the only stable solution. The word echoed like a fracture. Silence followed. Not agreement. Not yet. Deliberation. Across the galaxy, the Council had ended wars before they began. They had guided species away from extinction, redirected civilizations, preserved balance. But never had they voted to erase one. The harmonic voice spoke again, quieter now. They have not attacked us. They will, Zyro replied. You cannot guarantee that. I do not need certainty, Zyro said. Only probability. The chamber dimmed further, the star outside dimming as if in response. They are unpredictable, Zyro continued. That alone makes them dangerous. A low-frequency signal pulsed through the chamber, a call for decision. One by one, the council members began to vote. Not with words, but with light. Some flickered in hesitation. Others remained steady. A few dimmed, uncertain. But gradually, the pattern formed. A majority. The decision was made. The projection of Earth vanished. Zyro lowered its form slightly, as if acknowledging the weight of the moment. It will be done, it said. Far from the council chamber, beyond the reach of its silent judgment, a human ship drifted in orbit around a distant colony. The HFY Resolute was not elegant. Its hull bore scars of past engagements, its design a patchwork of upgrades and modifications layered over time. It was not perfect. It was functional. Inside the command deck, Commander Elias Varn stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the stars. Still no response? He asked. A young officer glanced up from her console. No, sir. Council channels remained silent. Elias exhaled slowly. Not frustration, just acknowledgement. They're thinking, he said. Or ignoring us, another officer muttered. Elias allowed a faint smile. If they were ignoring us, we wouldn't have gotten this far. He turned, stepping toward the central display. A map of nearby systems flickered into focus: trade routes, colonies, patrol zones. Human space was still small. Fragile. But growing. They'd been watching us for years, Elias continued. Studying. Measuring. And judging, the young officer added. That too. She hesitated. Do you think they'll accept us? Elias didn't answer immediately. He looked at the map, at the scattered points of light that represented humanity's reach. Each one hard-earned. Each one defended. They don't have to like us, he said finally. They just have to understand us. And if they don't? Elias met her gaze. Then we'll make them. A quiet settled over the deck. Not fear. Focus. An alert chimed softly, routine diagnostics, nothing unusual. The ship continued its steady orbit, unaware of the decision already made light years away. Elias turned back to the stars. Out there somewhere, a civilization older and wiser than his own was deciding humanity's fate. He trusted that reason would prevail. He had to. Behind him, the crew resumed their work. Systems checked. Signals monitored. Life continued, as it always had. Unaware. Unprepared. And yet, ready in ways no one else in the galaxy could yet understand. Back in the council chamber, the neutron star pulsed once more. Zyro stood alone now, the others already dispersing to carry out their roles. For a moment, it observed the empty space where the projection of Earth had been. Then, quietly, it spoke, though no one remained to hear it. They will not see it coming. The star's light flickered. And across the void, fleets began to move. The first human colony to see the invasion was Helios Gate, a mining world wrapped in cold rings of ice and metal. It had no grand monuments, no political value, no ancient legacy. Just workers, cargo lines, refineries, and families who had built lives at the edge of mapped space. At 3:17 local station time, the sky changed. No alarm came first. No warning. One moment the orbital grid displayed the usual traffic lanes and maintenance drones. The next, space tore open above the planet in 6 perfect circles of white-blue light. Massive shapes emerged in silent formation, black against the stars, their hulls smooth as carved obsidian, their geometry too precise to look real. Then Helios Gate's sensor net screamed. On the command deck of the HFY Resolute, 3 systems away, every console flashed crimson. Priority burst from Helios Gate, Lieutenant Mara Sato snapped, her voice suddenly sharpened by adrenaline. Unknown fleet translation confirmed. Multiple capital-class vessels. No transponder signatures. Commander Elias Varn crossed the bridge in 4 long strides. Put it up. The main display expanded into a tactical feed. 6 enormous ships held position above Helios Gate's northern orbital plane, smaller escorts spilling around them in disciplined lines. No broadcast. No identification. No attempt at contact. Only weapons charging. For half a heartbeat the bridge fell silent. Then Elias said, "So that's their answer." The first strike hit the outer defense platforms. Council weapons did not roar like human rail guns or flare like missile impacts. They lanced downward in narrow columns of pale light, elegant and almost delicate, until steel habitats split in half and vanished into clouds of molten debris. The feed shook as secondary explosions rolled through the station perimeter. "Civilian sectors?" Elias asked. "Still intact," Mara replied. Her hands moved quickly across her board. "For now." "For now," he repeated, calm and flat. "Signal all local commanders. Execute Black Lass." Several heads turned. Black Lass was not a public protocol. Most of the crew had heard of it only in fragments. Mara did not hesitate. "Transmitting." Across Helios Gate, the colony reacted with the speed of drilled instinct. Lights died district by district. Ports sealed. Thermal signatures vanished. Traffic beacons cut out. Habitation domes sank behind armored shutters. In orbit, stations dumped false telemetry into open channels while power rerouted underground and into shielded vaults. From space, the colony seemed to go blind. To the Council, it looked like panic. To Elias, it looked like survival. "They've blacked out the grid," one of the sensor officers said. "Council ships are adjusting formation. They think the colony's collapsing." "Good," Elias said. "Let them." He leaned over the tactical table. "Get Admiral Imani on fleet-wide." A moment later, the older woman's face appeared above the holo display, lit by battle glare from her own bridge. "Tell me you've got something useful, Elias." "I've got a pattern," he said. "Look at their spacing." She glanced down, eyes narrowing. "Tight geometry. Centralized firing lanes. No drift. They move like they've already solved the battle." Imani gave a thin, humorless smile. "That's a dangerous kind of confidence. It's also a weakness." Above Helios Gate, the Council fleet advanced with machine grace. Their escorts spread in clean arcs, each vessel locking into a roll the instant it arrived. Interdiction ships blocked escape vectors. Attack craft pivoted toward the colony's dead zones. Larger warships continued the methodical dismantling of orbital defenses, never wasting motion, never overlapping fire. Their precision was beautiful. It was also predictable. "Launch the Kestrels," Elias ordered. "All squadrons. Cold burn only until they're inside the envelope." A young pilot on comms whistled softly. "You're sending bombers through that?" "I'm sending ghosts," Elias said. From hidden bays carved into Helios Gate's asteroid docks, small human strike craft slipped into the dark. No running lights. Minimal emissions. Hulls coded to scatter scans. They moved beneath debris shadows and through the wreckage of their own broken platforms, using the destruction as cover. The Council fleet did not notice them. Not at first. The enemy's targeting systems were looking for organized resistance, frigate signatures, active shield walls, standard retaliatory formations. They expected fear to become disorder, and disorder to become defeat. Instead, human pilots drifted silently between shattered metal beams and coolant vapor, closing distance meter by meter. On the Resolute, Mara tracked the approach with clenched jaw. 30 seconds. Elias folded his arms. "Wait. Sir, they're inside range." "Wait." On the tactical screen, the Council escorts adjusted again, tightening around the larger ships. A textbook response to a darkened battlefield: consolidate, dominate, suppress. Exactly what Elias wanted. "No," he said. The void erupted. Human strike craft ignited at once, engines burning bright as sudden stars. Missile racks opened. Kinetic payloads launched at absurdly close range. Several kestrels did not even pull away. They rammed guidance drone clusters straight into the Council screen, tearing holes through the formation before the defenders understood what had happened. "Direct hits!" Mara shouted. "Escort line collapsing port side." Council vessels reacted instantly, but not flexibly. Their outer line turned as one, attempting to restore geometry instead of improvising around the breach. That choice cost them. From beneath the colony's frozen ring, a second wave rose, retrofitted tug haulers packed with decoy emitters, scrap plating, and crude engine boosters. On sensors they bloomed into false capital signatures. Council targeting systems pivoted toward them in perfect synchronization. A beat later, mines hidden in the wreck belt detonated. The blast sheared through the heart of the enemy formation. One escort vanished. Another spun out trailing silver fire. A third drifted sideways into the path of its own cruiser, and the larger ship clipped it hard enough to rupture both hulls. The once pristine lattice of the Council assault scattered into chaos. Admiral Imani's laugh crackled over comms. "You sly bastard!" Elias kept his eyes on the display. "They're still stronger than we are." "Yes," she said. "But they're learning the wrong lesson." On the Council flagship above Helios Gate, High Tactical Overseer Sarek stared at the broken formation in disbelief. The humans had responded without formal fleet alignment. They had sacrificed infrastructure, hidden assets inside debris, imitated larger signatures, and attacked through their own blackout. There was no doctrine for this. "Recalculate suppression vectors," Sarek ordered. "We are attempting," an aide replied. "Their attack pattern does not conform to prior modeling." "Then update the model." "We are updating, Overseer. It is already obsolete." For the first time in decades, Sarek felt something ancient and unwelcome crawl into his thoughts. Confusion. Back on the Resolute, new signals flashed across the board. "Council ships are pulling back from low orbit," Mara said. "They're widening distance." "Because they don't trust what they can map," Elias replied. A damaged feed from Helios Gate came through then, smoke-filled corridors, medics dragging civilians, station personnel sealing ruptures with emergency foam. Losses were real. Fires still burned. Bodies still floated in fractured docks. Humanity had been hit hard. But it had not folded. Elias opened a direct channel to every ship, platform, and buried command node in system. "This is Commander Varn. Listen carefully. They came here expecting surrender wrapped in silence. They saw the dark and mistook it for fear. Make sure they remember what it was." Around the bridge, tired faces lifted. Mara looked at him. "What do we do if they come back with a bigger fleet?" Elias stared at the enemy formation as it retreated to reorganize, its clean lines scarred, its certainty shaken. "They will," he said. "And next time they'll think they understand us." He let that settle before speaking again, quieter now. "That's when we start winning." Far above Helios Gate, the surviving Council ships withdrew beyond immediate strike range, carrying with them wreckage, corrupted data, and a truth they had not expected to learn so early. Humanity was not a frightened species waiting to be judged. It was a species that had grown up in fire, learned in disaster, and built its future in the space between impossible odds and refusal. The Council had launched a first strike. Humanity had answered. And the war had only just begun. War did not arrive all at once. It spread. From Helios Gate, the conflict fractured into dozens of fronts, shipping lanes, relay stations, outer colonies, listening posts hidden in asteroid shadows. Each engagement carried its own rhythm, its own chaos. No single map could capture it anymore. The Council tried anyway. In their central command sphere, projections multiplied across a vast lattice of predictive threads. Each scenario branched cleanly, calculated, precise. Each assumed that patterns once observed could be repeated. They could not. "Human response variability exceeds acceptable margins," one analyst reported, its voice steady but strained. Previous engagement models no longer apply. High Arbiter Zyro stood at the center of the chamber, silent as data collapsed and reformed around it. Then generate new models, Zyro said. We have, the analyst replied. They fail within minutes of contact. A flicker passed through the projections, battlefields dissolving into statistical noise. They do not follow their own strategies, the analyst continued. They revise them during execution. Zyro's glow dimmed slightly, not in doubt, but in focus. They are improvising. They are evolving, the analyst corrected. On the bridge of the HED Resolute, evolution looked far less elegant. Engine output at 90%. Hull integrity holding, for now, Mara Sato said, her voice tight as she adjusted power flows. The ship shuddered again, a deep vibration running through its frame as another near-miss carved a line of ionized particles across its flank. Elias Varn didn't look away from the forward display. Report on the forward flotilla. 2 frigates lost. 1 drifting. They're still transmitting telemetry, though, feeding targeting updates. Good. Keep them in the net. A junior officer hesitated. Sir, they're barely functional. Elias nodded once. Which makes their data unpredictable. That's useful. The officer blinked, then returned to his console. Outside, the battlefield unfolded in fragments, ships darting in broken vectors, debris fields spinning where formations had once been, bursts of light marking impacts too fast to track. Nothing held still long enough to be understood. Council cruisers are regrouping on the far side of the debris belt, Mara said. They're forming a new firing line. Of course they are, Elias murmured. They always do. He tapped the console, expanding the tactical overlay. The enemy ships aligned into clean arcs, each vessel sliding into position with mechanical certainty. They think structure will save them, he said. Structure works, Mara replied. Only if the other side agrees to play along. He turned slightly. Signal the Nomad wing. A voice crackled over comms, rough and amused. You finally letting us off the leash, Commander? Elias allowed himself a faint smile. Try not to make it look like an accident. No promises. Moments later, the Nomad wing entered the field. They weren't standard military units. Half their ships didn't match each other. Modified cargo haulers, stripped-down interceptors, experimental prototypes held together by ingenuity and stubbornness. Their flight paths ignored formation entirely, scattering across the battlefield like sparks. The Council's sensors struggled to classify them. Multiple vectors detected, a Council operator reported. No consistent pattern. Assign priority targets, Sarek ordered from his command platform. Eliminate them before they consolidate. They are not consolidating. For a brief instant, Sarek said nothing. Then the first Nomad strike hit. Instead of attacking the main firing line, they dove toward support vessels, communication relays, targeting arrays, auxiliary power nodes. Small, fragile ships that kept the larger fleet synchronized. Explosions rippled through the network. Coordination loss detected, another operator said. Targeting delay increasing. Reroute through secondary systems. Secondary systems are already under attack. On the battlefield, human ships shifted direction mid-engagement, abandoning advantageous positions to exploit sudden openings. One frigate cut its engines entirely, drifting through a crossfire zone to avoid detection, then reignited at point-blank range behind an enemy cruiser. Another vessel vented atmosphere intentionally, creating a cloud of debris that masked its movement just long enough to slip past a scanning sweep. None of it followed doctrine. All of it worked. Back on the Resolute, Mara exhaled slowly. They're dismantling the fleet piece by piece. They're dismantling its logic, Elias corrected. He pointed at the display. See that cruiser? It's still firing on its original coordinates. Mara frowned. But the target moved. Exactly. The cruiser's beam lanced through empty space, its targeting solution locked to outdated data. By the time it recalibrated, the human ship had already repositioned. They rely on certainty, Elias said. Delay that, and they hesitate. Make them hesitate, and they lose. Another impact rocked the Resolute, closer this time. Shields are dropping, Mara warned. Divert power from non-essential systems. We're running out of non-essential, sir. Elias glanced at her, then back to the battle. Then we redefine essential. He opened a channel to all units. This is Varn. New directive, break their sight lines. I don't care how. If they can't see clearly, they can't think clearly. Across the field, human ships responded instantly. Missiles were redirected not at ships, but at empty space, detonating into clouds of interference. Cargo containers were jettisoned and ignited, creating drifting walls of heat signatures. Even damaged vessels were pushed into strategic positions, their wreckage repurposed as moving cover. The battlefield blurred. Council sensors flooded with conflicting data. Signal noise increasing, Sarek said. Filtering systems are failing. Then simplify. Zyro's voice cut in, calm and absolute. The chamber fell silent. Reduce variables, Zyro continued. Focus on destruction, not precision. Sarek hesitated. That will result in significant collateral loss. It will result in victory. A pause. Then Sarek gave the order. Council ships opened fire indiscriminately. Beams swept across wide arcs, tearing through debris, human vessels, and even their own damaged escorts. The battlefield lit with uncontrolled destruction, a brutal attempt to erase uncertainty by overwhelming it. For a moment it worked. Human ships scattered, some caught in the crossfire, others forced into retreat. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. We're taking direct hits! Mara shouted. Hull breach on deck 4. Seal it, Elias said. His voice remained steady, but his eyes hardened. Hold position. Sir, we need to fall back. No. He stepped closer to the display, watching the chaos unfold. They've abandoned control, he said quietly. That means they're afraid. Mara glanced at him. Afraid of what? Elias didn't look away. Of not understanding us. The moment stretched. Then he spoke again, sharper now. All units converge on the central cruiser. They've exposed it. Through the storm of indiscriminate fire, a gap had opened, small, fleeting, but real. The Council's largest vessel, momentarily isolated as its escorts repositioned. Human ships moved. Not in formation. Not in unison. But with shared intent. They came from every angle. Damaged frigates, nomad craft, even drifting wrecks repurposed as kinetic weapons. The attack was messy, uneven, impossible to predict. It was exactly what the Council could not counter. Explosions erupted across the cruiser's surface. Its shields flickered, then failed. Hull plating shattered under concentrated fire. Critical damage detected, a Council operator reported. Core integrity compromised. Sarek stared at the collapsing feed. How? The question never finished. The cruiser detonated. A shockwave rolled across the battlefield, scattering ships in all directions. For a moment, everything went still. Then the remaining Council vessels began to withdraw. Not in perfect formation. Not in calculated order. But in retreat. On the Resolute, silence settled over the bridge. Mara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They're pulling back. Elias nodded slowly. They've learned something, he said. What? He watched the enemy's ships vanish into distant light. That this isn't a war they can solve. He turned away from the display, the weight of the moment settling in. And we've only just started teaching them. The war did not end in a single battle. It narrowed. Fronts collapsed inward as human fleets advanced with deliberate pressure, forcing the conflict toward a single point, the Council's central system. Every retreat, every shattered formation, every failed model led there. The heart of order. The system was unlike any human had seen. A lattice of artificial constructs surrounded a dim white star, each structure positioned with impossible precision. Orbital rings, data spires, and defense platforms formed layers upon layers of controlled space. Nothing drifted. Nothing deviated. Even the lights seemed disciplined. At the center of it all hung the council chamber. Elias Varn stood on the bridge of the HED Resolute, staring at the display. Behind him, the crew worked in focused silence. No chatter. No unnecessary movement. They had come too far for that. Final approach vectors locked, Mara Sato reported. All fleets in position. Enemy response? Elias asked. Minimal, she said. Defensive formations are active, but they're holding distance. No forward engagement. They're waiting, Elias said. For what? He didn't answer immediately. For a solution, he said at last. They still think this can be solved. The human fleet spread across the system, but not in neat lines. Ships drifted at uneven intervals, some holding position, others adjusting constantly. No pattern held long enough to be defined. It was intentional. At the edge of the Council's defensive perimeter, a channel opened. A single signal. Clear. Direct. Mara glanced at Elias. Incoming transmission. High priority. Put it through. The display shifted. Light coalesced into a familiar form, High Arbiter Zyril. Even across the void, its presence carried weight. You have advanced beyond all projected limits, Zyril said. Its voice remained calm, but something beneath it had changed. Not fear. Not yet. Recognition. Elias stepped forward slightly. You started this. We initiated a corrective action, Zyril replied. Your species presents an unacceptable variable. And now? A pause. No, Zyril said. You present a greater one. Mara glanced at Elias, then back to the display. You can still withdraw. Zyril continued. Cease your advance. Accept containment. The conflict ends. Elias almost smiled. You attacked our colonies, he said. You tried to erase us before you understood us. You are understood, Zyril replied. You are unpredictable. That's not understanding, Elias said quietly. That's fear. For the first time, Zyril did not respond immediately. Instead, the defensive grid shifted. Council ships moved into position, larger than anything humanity had faced so far. Their weapons powered up, energy gathering along flawless surfaces. The system itself seemed to align around them, every structure feeding into a unified defense. Mara's voice dropped. They're preparing a full system strike. Elias nodded. Of course they are. He turned slightly. All fleets, hold position. Several officers looked up. Sir? One of them said. If they fire. They won't, Elias said. He keyed a command into his console. Across the human fleet, something changed. Ships powered down weapons. Engines reduced output. Signatures dropped. On the Council side, the reaction was immediate. Human vessels are disengaging, Sarek reported from the command sphere. No active targeting. No charge buildup. Zyril observed in silence. They are attempting deception, Sarek continued. We should strike before. No, Zyril said. The word cut through the chamber. Wait. On the Resolute, Mara stared at the readings. They're hesitating. Elias nodded. Because this doesn't fit. Fit what? Their expectations. He stepped closer to the display, his voice steady. They think every move leads to escalation. That every conflict ends in destruction. And this doesn't? Elias shook his head. This ends in a choice. He opened a system-wide channel, not just to human ships, but to the Council itself. This is Commander Elias Varn of the Human Expeditionary Defense, he said. You've seen what we can do. You've seen how we fight. The signal carried across the system, cutting through defensive frequencies, overriding standard protocols. We could destroy your fleet, Elias continued. Not cleanly. Not easily. But we would win. Silence followed. On the council side, operators watched, uncertain. Elias didn't rush. But that's not why we're here. Mara glanced at him, surprised. We didn't come to prove we're stronger, he said. We came to prove you were wrong. Zyral's form flickered slightly. Clarify. You saw our past, Elias said. War. Conflict. Survival. You decided that was all we'd ever be. It is what you are, Zyral replied. Elias shook his head. It's where we started. He gestured toward the fleet behind him. Damaged ships, mismatched designs, crews held together by determination rather than perfection. We fight because we have to, he said. We adapt because we don't have a choice. But we don't destroy everything we don't understand. The words settled into the silence. Stand down, Elias said. End this. Not because you lost. Because you learned. On the council side, tension filled the chamber. Sarek turned to Zyral. This is a stalling tactic. They are repositioning. They are not, Zyral said. How can you be certain? Zyral did not answer immediately. Instead, it studied the human fleet, the irregular spacing, the powered-down weapons, the lack of movement. For the first time since the war began, nothing was happening. No attack. No calculation. Only presence. They are offering resolution, Zyral said at last. Sarek hesitated. We cannot accept. We must, Zyral interrupted. The chamber fell silent. They have already demonstrated superiority in adaptability, Zyral continued. Continued conflict will result in systemic destabilization. And surrender will not? Sarek asked. Zyral's glow dimmed slightly. This is not surrender, it said. It is correction. The defensive grid powered down. One by one, council weapons went dark. On the Resolute, Mara exhaled sharply. They're standing down. Elias watched the readings stabilize. Hold position, he said quietly. No one moved. No one fired. Minutes passed. Then the channel reopened. Zyral's form appeared again, unchanged in shape, but not in meaning. We misjudged your species, it said. Elias met its gaze. Yes. We identified chaos, Zyral continued. We failed to recognize its structure. Elias allowed himself a small nod. Chaos isn't the absence of order, he said. It's a different kind of it. Zyral processed that in silence. You will be integrated into the council, it said finally. Elias shook his head. Not like this. A flicker of confusion. Clarify. We're not joining as something you control, Elias said. We're not another system to stabilize. He took a breath. We're equals. Or we're nothing. The words hung in the space between them. For a moment, it seemed the fragile piece might fracture. Then Zyral inclined its form, just slightly. Accepted. On the bridge, no one spoke. Not at first. Then, slowly, the tension broke. Mara leaned back, a disbelieving smile crossing her face. We actually did it. Elias didn't respond immediately. He was still looking at the system, the perfect structures, the controlled light, the civilization that had nearly erased his own. They thought we'd destroy them, he said quietly. Mara followed his gaze. Did we? Elias shook his head. No. He watched as human ships began to reposition, not for attack, but for something new. We changed them. Beyond the viewport, the Council's system remained intact. But it was no longer untouched. And neither was the galaxy.